Jack, Erebus Motorsport. 2014, they tick some boxes. Lee Holdsworth had a race win at Winton. Will Davison had a pole at the last event at Sydney Olympic Park. They had a couple of other strong results. They had a couple of torn up race cars as well. Can they succeed without factory backing?
Well, they've never had factory backing, so they've come a long way without the support of Mercedes financially, or from what I'm aware, financially. And, you know, you read reports that they're struggling here and there with the finances and bits and pieces. So, look, it's been pretty cool to have Mercedes-Benz on the grid, thanks to Erebus and Betty's vision there. They'll want more competitive race cars to continue, because competitiveness means results, and results mean sponsorship and so on. And hopefully Mercedes, you know, do get on board and help that cause. But you know, they've lost Lee Holdsworth, so Will Davison is the clear #1 driver.
He's the leader now. He has to be their leader. Ash Walsh is a good, solid young talent, but as we've seen in the Dunlop series, has stuff to learn still, as any young guy does. So they're in a position where they've not got two race-winning proven drivers. They've got one and a guy who's promising. But I just can't see that a team... I mean, can you remember the last team that won a championship without factory support?
It's been for a long
time. And even if it didn't have blatant factory support, there was always backdoor. Dick Johnson Sierras weren't factory Sierras, but there was Motorcraft stickers on them. There was stuff, you know, still coming out of the place. So I'd say that the answer to this is no. And it's not because they're not trying hard enough, or they're not putting in the effort, or trying to build their resource list. I just can't see that a team without manufacturer support can... Well, what is success is probably the bigger question. Is it winning a championship? Is it being a regular top 5 runner? Is it winning X number of races in the championship? I mean, you can move the marker on what you deem successful as, but it's a tough road, and they have made ground, but Volvo turn up, and within a year they've leapfrogged past them. Nissan are starting to get their stuff together. They're tailing Charlie in terms of the race of manufacturers, or, you know, those deemed the different marks in the category.
Yeah, and one other thing we haven't touched on is, you know, Ross Stone, who was steering that ship for Erebus, has now moved on. And, you know, he brought with him a wealth of experience, the championship history with Stone Brothers, and whether that's going to hurt them, you know, direction for how to make the cars faster, how to try and win the championship, time will tell.
They're just going to need engine. They really need engine. That's where their struggle's been in the last 12 odd months, in terms of the one area that you could magically try to fix and change. If they could get that right, if they could get that more competitive, maybe they can succeed. But as we say, it's not an easy road, and you can't just solve it overnight, as time's already shown.
Well, a year under your belt with Erebus, 2015, different expectations?
Of course, I think we have to make sure we have higher expectations. It's natural for a team in its development phase. I think when you look at it as a whole now, certainly as a team, they've come a long way from this time last year. So we've achieved some goals. Lee getting the win at Winton. I was on the podium at Townsville, multiple top 5 and top 10 qualifying and race results. But we need to raise the bar, and it's going to be a really crucial off-season for us to make sure we hit next year's targets.
Not a long off-season though, is it?
It's literally like a slightly extended break between races to what we have at other times during the season. So, you know, everyone's a little bit burnt out, so it's really about managing that, making sure everyone gets a bit of a recharge of the batteries, but at the same time, particularly for a team and a car that's in its infancy like it is now, there's not too much time for holidays, unfortunately. We've got a lot of work that we need to do, and we've got a lot of ideas. We've got a really long list, and as I said, for us, we're not going to polish it up and send it back out in February. I mean, there's going to be a lot of work that goes on in the off season, so we're obviously looking forward to that, because at the moment we just, you know, we prepare the cars, we turn them around, we service them, and we try and improve the small details, but the fundamental major things, that's just time in the off season when finally we're not travelling to a race.
Are the list of things obvious that you need to improve on?
Well, yes, they are obvious, but how you fix them isn't so obvious. If it was that easy, we would have done it a long time ago. So we've got a fair idea what fundamentally needs to improve with the engine package. I think the chassis has shown great potential at certain rounds, but we need the consistency to improve from circuit to circuit, and To be honest, this car is very different to last year's car. I wasn't at the team last year, but a lot of the suspension's different. So we've nearly started with a clean sheet of paper this year, and every time we go to a track, we learn. So when we go back there next year, I think this year's information is going to be invaluable, particularly for me being the first year at the team. So we'll certainly be in better shape everywhere we go next year, because we'll start with a much better setup and a much greater understanding of the car. But yeah, we've got to get better, and everyone else is trying to do the same, but we need to take it up 2 steps.
2015, third year as Erebus Mercedes, or AMG, in this category. What are your expectations?
Expectations, effectively it'll be our second year, seeing as the car for 2013 was a completely different animal to what we raced in 2014. We evolved it a very long way, both chassis and engine, through 2014. The expectation is in the off-season we've come a long way in some of those steps, but we won't know until we go back to those racetracks and put what we learned to the task.
You don't have a long off-season. You got a list of ideas. Will was talking even about a lot of ideas, and I'm sure within the engineering group too. Clipsal must be feeling like it's just around the corner though.
Yeah, exactly right. There literally isn't an off-season when it comes to the technical side. It's learn, develop, and then obviously aim to put it onto the racetrack. So for us, it's a very short turnaround in that phase between Homebush and coming to Clipsal. Clipsal's only a short one away. We were really strong there in 2014. Fortunately, Lee came over the radio and said best race car he's ever driven at Clipsal, and we got good times ahead. So we're hopeful to be able to repeat that going into our first race of the year for this year.
In terms of the manufacturer way things work out, you guys aren't, I guess, at the same level as a Volvo or a Nissan. Is that going to change next year? In terms of your support, I mean, there's been always talk that the customer support with AMG, are you in a position to say that's going to happen next year yet?
Support is a very broad term, very broad. Technically, I think that we're, given the nature of the sport and that it does come down to tenths and hundredths of a second, I think that we're down to really it comes down to a black art and how we apply it when we go racing. I'm pretty confident with the relationship that's in place, what we'll do with our own homework in the off-season, like we've just said, in the Christmas into test day or Clipsal period, and then it'll come down to how we apply that on the racetrack on any particular race weekend. The biggest gain for us will be the car that we raced in 2014 and minimal changes so that the data that we extract still applies when we go to those new racetracks effectively in this season going forward. A lot of factors that come into that, resurfacing it at a number of tracks. So you take the book, throw it out the window, learn what you can. So I think 15 will be a lot more consistent from a support perspective. Look, it's always growing. Winning the GT Championship certainly is always good from a manufacturer perspective and the relationship with AMG through the customer sports program. But as far as the technical way we go racing, it'll definitely be Erebus that's applying the skill set onto the racetrack.
But you feel that in 2015, with these ideas and things going forward, you will be going forward and it won't just be the same characters up the front every other weekend? Yeah,
no, absolutely. Yeah, since we came into the sport, it's always been about pushing hard. We knew it was going to be a tall task. I'll be honest, I didn't expect it to be as difficult as it was through 2013. Pretty happy with the steps we made coming into 14. Really looking forward to this year. So, yeah, there's no doubt we're reinventing the wheel to come out next year. Most of that will be in some chassis, but significantly more so in the engine.
Each and every day on the Armour All Summer Grill, you've got the chance to win one of these, the Armour All Detailing Kit. All you have to do is to subscribe to speedcafe.com.
To find out if you've won, visit and like the speedcafe.com Facebook page.
If you're like me, wash your car fairly regularly, you'll still find after a year, maybe 2, that it starts to lose some of its lustre, some of that real sheen. And what that typically is, there's a build-up of oxidisation on top of the paint, or you can also do it just from washing with dirty cloths and wiping with dirty cloths, and you get that swirl you see in the car sometimes. Right, a couple of products to solve that problem. In 2 forms, pretty well the same product. One, cut and polish in a cream form, and the other one, liquid cut and polish. So that's more of a pasty type liquid, very, very easy to use. So what you do, open him up, get yourself a nice dry rag, cotton rag or an applicator. Armour All have got those. Try not to do too big an area at a time. And importantly, do this in the shade, otherwise you'll make the work much, much harder. Right, now work in a swirling motion, you know, sort of nearly half a bonnet or a third of a bonnet's a pretty indicative area to do. Swirl around, not too hard, just a nice light polish all over, and the materials in this will go to work. And once you've done that, you just need to leave it, walk away from it, leave it until it hazes off to a nice dry powdery haze. Then come back with, you can use a make a microfiber cloth or just use a nice soft cotton cloth, and we'll just wait a sec for that to haze off and you watch how good this comes up. Now depending on the heat of the day, that won't take any more than a minute or two to haze off. In fact, fellas, you know what I do? That's the time I use to get the missus to paint the tyres. Come back, give it a nice wipe off with your nice dry cloth, and seriously, look at that, that's not hard work. If you leave it the right amount of time, buff that off, and that's the pleasurable part of this job, let me tell you, because I mean, I'm not the best looking bloke, but I can see myself in there. That is really good to make your old car new again. Good product.